Welcome back, Wargamers. We are back with another edition of Budget Wargamer, and today we're going to talk about Idoneth Deepkin, who are going to come out for pre-order this coming weekend. Some of us were feeling a little bit lackluster on the pre-orders this past weekend. We had a wave of big releases, as well as a slew of new information coming out of Adepticon. And this past week's pre-orders of the two different Shadespire factions are probably not the most exciting thing you can come up with, but there's certainly good sets in and of themselves for Magor's Fiends and then the other group from the Stormcast Eternals. But this is some big news because this is the very first time in Warhammer / Age of Sigmar history that the Idoneth Deepkin have actually become a faction of their own. Sure, they have some tie-overs into some of the other Dark Elf models that have been out before, such as the Black Ark Corsairs and things like that, or at least some speculation that those people may have worshipped the same god that the Idoneth Deepkin have paid tribute to. So let's go ahead and take a look without too much further ado. Checking it out, I'm rocking my vintage Games Day 2005 t-shirt. Got this when I worked there. We are the 5 heavy or troop choice, and then the Ultramarines. I think that during this time might have been when Battle for McCrag was a box set. Can't quite remember. That was about 13 years ago, if you remember correctly. So that was in Ontario, California that I attended that event back when Games Day took place in multiple places across the U.S. I think it was Baltimore, Maryland, because I was close to the Glen Burnie headquarters, Chicago in the middle of the United States, and then Ontario, California at the Ontario Convention Center for the West Coast kids. So let's go ahead and dive in. If you want to take a look at some of these upcoming pre-orders, you want to head on over to Warhammer Community, which you can get to from the bottom of the Games Workshop website. So even though up at the very top of the Games Workshop website, you've just got Magor's Fiends and then the Stormcast Eternals, otherwise known as the Farstriders, that's all you're seeing for pre-order. That's this week's pre-orders. This upcoming week's pre-orders, we'll take a look. It is finally the Idoneth Deepkin. So this is a race of elves. It's one of the many races of elves, and these are the guys that have lived at the bottom of the ocean and have been worshiping the elvish god Mathlann. I may have pronounced that incorrectly, but let's take a look here. Yes, the wait is finally over. Those of you who have been seeing in the Battletomes and the General's Handbook about allies and things like that pertaining to Idoneth Deepkin, yes, they're finally here. During Adepticon, we saw the models and the previews of what's coming out in this very impressive, what appears to be all plastic army range. But the first week of releases, it's hard to say whether these are great releases or whether these are great units. But there's only really 2 models that stand out as being okay. The big cavalry units and the turtle and things like that are going to come out in later weeks. So we're going to see the Idoneth Deepkin kind of spaced out over a period of time. But here we've got the Lotann, which are Warden of the Soul Ledgers. Actually, we got that backwards. This is the Namarti Thralls. So here in this unit, we'll take a closer look. Let's get my mug off the camera there. And so this is a box set of 10 of the troop choices. I had kind of wondered if this box set could be assembled with the bows, but it's starting to look like those might actually be a completely separate unit. And if we take a look here at one of the pre-order leaks, this is in British pounds, so I don't know exactly what it's going to translate to when we get to the US dollars, but basically, this upcoming release is going to be the Battletome, aka the Codex. We've got the Warscroll cards, their own dice, then the Namarti Thralls, which we just took a look at and we'll get back to. Then you've got Eidolon of Mathlann, who is the centerpiece figure. That's an awesome figure who appears to be riding a wave of water. We'll take a look at him. Idoneth Deepkin Lotann, and that's the guy with the octopus, which is a pretty great and interesting model. Can't wait to see if other people start to incorporate the Cthulhu nature of these models into some 40k armies and things like that. It might be interesting to see. And then Etheric Vortex. This is the scenery piece called the Gloomtide Shipwreck. You guys might remember that from the teaser video with the goldfish. So taking a look back at the Namarti Thralls, that is them. They look a little bit like, if you remember the movie 300, they've got a little bit of that look. Just that kind of Near East, Middle East type of look to them. And not so much appealing at all. Actually, when I take a look at these guys, these are these foot troops are one of the least appealing models in the range, and they remind me somewhat of something from the other game Hordes from Privateer Press, if you remember War Machine Hordes. So then we take a look at Lotann. This guy's pretty cool. He's almost more like a high elf, But here he is, and he's got the octopus with him, or is it the octopus that's controlling his mind like a mind flayer from Dungeons and Dragons? The octopus is holding his scrolls, his weapons, while he sits here and he is the soul ledger. So this guy, I think a lot of people are going to pick this model up. I imagine that this would have a lot of functional use in the game, because you wouldn't make a model this cool and not give it a lot of tabletop abilities. At least Games Workshop would want to be selling a lot of them. So here it says, our favorite detail of the miniature is the Octar, which must be talking about the octopus, a familiar that protects Lotann on the battlefield. We're sure you haven't missed the knife and club wielded by his 8-legged guardian. No, certainly have not. So let's take a further close look at these guys. And you can see the sword here on the octopus. You can't even really call it his right hand because he's got so many hands. And it makes you think that it's just a great symbiotic relationship. While he's busy keeping a tally and checking his list, this octopus is out there doing harm on the battlefield. Really cool concept. Very cool concept. Because normally you see people riding a creature or something like that. And in this case, the creature almost seems to be hovering over and controlling him. Now we have what's probably one of the coolest models out there in Age of Sigmar. And this is not really an evil type of model. It's more of a friendly type of model. To take a look at it, it's the Eidolon of Mathlann. And Mathlann is the elvish god that these guys pay tribute to. It says it's one of Warhammer's most ambitious models ever, a kit that could only exist thanks to cutting-edge miniatures design and the latest casting technology. And if you take a look, it's because he's riding on the very tips of a wave, and it's a very top-heavy miniature by appearances, but there must be something here in the below ground with either the cuttlefish or the other type of fish. We'll take a closer look. Basically being able to suspend that in the air. So here's like some type of shelled fish and just a little pieces of coral. Look at how these very delicate waves appear to be separated. I could picture a lot of pissed off people carrying this model and transporting it and then watching these things break after painting this seafoam green type of wave. But that's one iteration, so this isn't going to be a single named character necessarily, because here's another iteration with a bit more of an evil presence. So the fish is a little bit different, or at least at a different angle, and we see a different head and different weaponry being selected, and even a different staff. So it does give you the sense that there might be more than one of these on the battlefield, or maybe there's just more a benevolent and a malignant version of this character out there in the kit. So it's cool to see that kit being able to be built more than one way. So now you've got the terrain piece, and this is the special Etheric Vortex, which is the Gloomtide Shipwreck. So this is the ship with the Sigmar priest on the front of it that we saw with the goldfish in the teaser video a few weeks ago. So this is going to be one of those scenery pieces that's going to allow them, I think, to summon troops onto the battlefield, something to that effect. Of course, you'll have to get the Battletome to be able to figure out the full rules of this model kit. But that's not the end of the releases. Yes, you definitely have the Battletome itself. So this will cover the backstory as well as the rules for the models in the Age of Sigmar universe. And then you've got the Warscroll cards, which are some tokens and things like that. Definitely something worth picking up. Now, we've actually got a couple different paints coming out for this. We've got the Ionrach skin and Deepkin flesh. So it says, to help make painting your Idoneth Deepkin army as easy as possible, we've been hard at work developing new paint specifically for the palest flesh. So this could become a very new paint scheme that would be handy for people who are also painting undead, Nurgle, and things like that, where you find these new shades of beigeish flesh tone in a very pale nature, becoming a desirable paint that you don't have to no longer have to mix up from scratch. And then we've got, look at these custom dice. They're actually clear, like a transparent acrylic, and you've got the skulls, a symbol, and then different waves on them to depict the numbers. Now, one of the cool things about these guys is that they have a special rule, like a title rule, that comes about every turn. So on the first turn, they've got a special effect that takes place with every unit in the army counts as cover. On the second turn, they get a bonus to advancing. Third turn, fourth turn. So it's in a 4-turn cycle that every 4 turns, these guys get a benefit. It doesn't ever seem to really be a detractor, that they need to keep in mind that as the battle goes on, they had to cycle through these benefits that their army is going to get. on the battlefield. So that's some type of advantage they get that a lot of people don't have based on the turn number. So that's the Idoneth Deepkin releases. Hope you guys are enjoying those. We'd certainly look forward to getting our hands on some of these models. And if you're into other things other than Games Workshop, I have been reviewing the Star Wars Legion. If you guys want to check that out, I've got another video that I'll link to here where I go over the contents of the Star Wars Legion core set that you guys would be able to check out. And I've got some other hobby videos coming up here this week that I want you guys to stay tuned for. If you're new to the channel, thank you very much for the subscription. Make sure you guys hit the like button. If you've listened this far, you definitely seem to like the content. That helps me know that you guys appreciate it, as well as help me out with the YouTube algorithm to help make sure that other people looking for similar videos help get recommended my videos during the search results, and I'd appreciate that. We did have some new followers, and one of the most recent followers, let's take a look. I believe his name is Brandon Poteet. Let me just double check if I got his first name right, and that was Brayton Poteet. So sorry about that. Brayton Poteet, thank you very much for being the newest subscriber here to Budget Wargamer. You guys stay tuned. Keep the hobby strong.